Here it is, Pulsar 2. This is a custom blaster that I made from an X-Shot Manic and a Nerf Rival Knockout grip. The first thing I did with this blaster was I took a lot of cues and inspiration from a handful of sci-fi blasters like the J2 from the Men in Black trilogy, both the double barrel and the single barrel variants, the 1995 Judge Dredd Lawgiver, and the Lex pistol, both Lex and AQUA-QUARTZ from Warframe, and I also kept the 2008 Star-Lord Conquest Annihilation color scheme because his colors are black, blue, white with orange lights in his helmet. So I decided to keep within that same theme. And I also drew inspiration from Osmosis Jones, and I'll demonstrate why in a sec. But first, I want to talk about the first blaster I purchased of this exact model. The first blaster I bought was back in February of last year, but unfortunately, after working on it for a while, I ended up butchering my own work because I kept adding too many plastic parts and not having enough creative outlet to really showcase what I could have done differently. So I decided to toss the old blaster in the trash and give myself a new one that I didn't mess up, surprisingly. And from the leftovers of that last blaster, I decided to keep the screws necessary so that way I could have myself a repair kit or replacement kit for any screw that's missing or screws that I want to add, maybe. But the first thing I did when I made the last blaster, I configured and converted the Golden Harvest lightsaber board into a blaster board. And like I said, this has a Golden Harvest board in it, so I'm not really going to expect blaster core behavioral programming behaviors, but I do have the blaster core V5, some of the sound effects from it anyway. And it's a really it's a really nice blaster. It's got a little heft to it. That's one of the biggest achievements that I wanted to accomplish with this blaster was to have some weight to it, but not be light as a feather. But not like but I didn't want it to be super heavy like an actual firearm that people would mistake this gun for. But I mean, who honestly would mistake a big blue bright colored toy as a real gun? Like, I mean, the possibilities are endless because of 3D printing now, but I digress. So the first thing I did, the changes that I made from the last blaster to this one was that, well, not last blaster as in the previous model, but last iteration of the same blaster that I threw away. I originally had the power switch sitting on the left side, but I broke everything down and decided to consolidate it to the right side for uh for better practical and functional reasons too. So I decided to put the power switch up forward after carving out channels for wires, LED, an LED indicator here. There was a pink LED that I put in there, but I took it out because it felt a bit tacky and offset from the rest of the blaster. And I decided to add a little bit of sci-fi tidbits here and there. And I went from having a kill switch on the back side of the blaster so that way it can emulate the hammer function like most contemporary conventional firearms, and decided to move the hammer. I decided to move the hammer piece to the side, to the right side, so that way whenever it's holstered, which I will make a holster in the future for this and finish up the rest of the blaster, it's mostly done. I just haven't had the luxury to add more pieces to it to make it stand out some more, and I wanted to add some more decorative stuff and to keep it interesting. But yeah, so I moved the kill switch from the back side to the right side because I want to be able to holster this thing and to be able to quietly turn it on without going through an elaborate process of pulling back a slide or racking, a pump handle type of deal or racking a plunger handle deal. You know what I mean? I don't like doing all that. So that's why I gutted the internals, kept a few things from it, like the spring chamber. I kept the spring chamber barrel, laminated the inside with aluminum tape so that way when an LED is put in here, I can have the light cascade and go forward and out. So this one, unlike the first Pulsar blaster, I have a green LED in this one. It's always been a green LED. Now, originally, I tested a RGB LED, but due to not having a variety of the correct resistors that I wanted to use, it kind of burnt out early. And on top of that, it was diffused, so it wasn't a crystal clear RGB LED that could have been effectively used. But anyway, I have a 3.7 volt lithium ion battery in here, but I will change it to a 7.4 volt battery whenever I make a huge upgrade to this. Whenever I make a few minor and major upgrades to this gun later on. But anyway, oh, I forgot to prime it on. But there's the safety switch. So right now, whenever the blaster is awake and idle, the hand grip LEDs will go off after 3 minutes of inactivity. The orange LED, like I said earlier, I got that cue from Osmosis Jones because Osmosis Jones' gun has an orange light coming from both sides of it. So I decided to keep it one side because I've already got the switch sitting here and a bunch of connective wires going to it. So in demonstration mode, I basically have the blaster sitting here, and I programmed it to basically play a pre-on sound whenever the blaster is being activated through the button. I have it playing a pre-on sound, and then the orange LED comes on, ready to rock and roll. I'll make a in-depth demonstration video showing more of this later. But you get the idea, you get the gist. And turn it off. Hold it for 3 seconds, and then I activated the gesture control so that way when I draw the gun from my holster, I can shake it like an airsoft tracer unit. I got that idea from Eastern 57 because his stuff is really awesome, and I look up to what he does and what he makes. So shout out to Eastern 57 for that idea. But hey, I decided to enable the gesture controls to turn on the blaster faster in a quick draw motion. Still the same result. The only difference is the split second, the major split second differences between turning gun on by button versus the gesture controls. Now, with the gesture controls, there is a bit of a caveat with it. If you're too careless and you forget which gesture controls you've enabled or disabled, you can always write it down somewhere and practice on turning it on and turning it off. And the original listing of the sound fonts that I have, there was 8, there was 10, then I bumped it down to 8, and then now it's just 4 because I thought, why do I need 8 different sound fonts for one blaster? I do want to expand the idea that it's multifunctional, and it still is, because it has 4 different firing modes. It has ion blast, pulsar, heavy duty, and auto pulse. Auto pulse being basically burst fire or rapid fire. So the blaster is sitting on a 3-minute timer, and what I have going for that is it's pretty seamless and not that hard to program or use. But I used the and for the blaster core sound effects and noises, I decided to keep some of it and change it around so that way it can sound more like a multifunctional blaster instead of a generic Star Wars blaster. It's not like, well, it does come from Star Wars a little bit, but it's not exactly like a Star Wars blaster. This is a custom Nerf blaster that I took apart, made it for me so I could shoot it at the TV, and instead of it being a mechanically reciprocating slide back blaster like the X-Shot Kickback, I decided to do something very different with this, and here it is. The aesthetic inspirations are very, like, some of it is original and others are just, some of the aesthetic choices are holdovers from conventional firearms, and some of it is actually, like I said, original. But this is original, but I decided to emulate the Osmosis Jones pistol to make it into this. And on this side, on the right side, in the back specifically, I decided to emulate the Beretta and Desert Eagle because those are both my favorite guns, right next to the 1911. And the green accent LED windows for both sides of the grip, that idea came from the 2001 Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes movie when he pulled out a now defunct pistol called a Claridge High Tech. If you don't know what that gun is, look it up, and the complicated history of it, look that up too. But yeah, it was. I got that. I decided to take that stylized. Uh, I decided to take that stylized idea and just put it inside the hand grip instead of the forward parts, because if you guys don't know, I've done some experimentation with the LED tolerances and shines when it comes to blue and cool colored LEDs. And this, well, and by blue I'm referring to the plastic. When it comes to blue plastic and cool colored LEDs, everything bleeds through except for red, apparently. Red and orange don't really bleed through like that because those are the darker, warm colors. They're still bright, but for some weird reason, they just don't shine through like they should. And that's a good thing, because the last thing I don't want is people taking note of the fact that, hey, there's green light seeping through the plastic. I mean, it does that enough already. When the this I also included a flashing I also included like a flashing blaster mimicking LED on the inside as the ignition bulb, so that way whenever you do take this gun apart and look at it on the inside, or if you look on my Instagram page, you can actually see the ignition bulb going off like the plasma pistol from Halo, though it's a much more safer and consolidated way of looking at it. And I also gutted a bunch of uh I gutted like a toy part and put it all in the back, so that way I can add wire routage and keep it less congested on the inside, and but still have it reasonably looking busy, you know what I'm saying? And the biggest issue that I've come across when coming to the finish line of this blaster was having to add weight to it. I didn't want this blaster to be as light as a feather, because I mean, in my for my personal taste and preferences, I'm looking for a certain experience when building a custom sci-fi blaster for myself. There's a particular experience that I'm looking for, and the experience that I looked for, it was right there all along. I just didn't pay attention fast enough to put it all together immediately when it was first built. So for the barrel piece, the forward barrel weight, I decided to uh purchase some PEX pipe a long while. Oh, I didn't say a long while ago, but like a while back. Yeah, a while back ago, I decided to have some PEX pipe for making stuff, and I didn't know what to do with it at the time. But due to the due to looking at a bunch of stuff on TV and my phone, I decided to use a half inch, but it's actually a 3/4 inch PEX pipe from Home Depot that fits over a Charlotte pipe, the 1 inch Charlotte pipes for the sprinkler systems. So I decided to use the 3/4 inch PEX pipe and cut a section of it as like a barrel weight, and it actually feels pretty hefty and close to 1 pound. But like I said, I'm not completely done with this blaster, and I'll add some more stuff to it in between now and whenever I get settled again. So, with all that being said, I'll film a demonstration video, but thank you guys for stopping by and watching, and have a good day.